Welcome to the new JFK show number 125. After a magnificent conference, we're going to do a show just about that. However, we've got Larry Rivera who's going to bring his presentation, the standing ovation presentation, to our show right now. So, Larry, it's your baby. Go ahead.
Hey, Gary and Jim. How you guys doing tonight? Good.
Good, Larry.
Yeah, it was quite an experience there, having all those wonderful people listening finally to what we had to say about Lee in the Doorway, something that's been known for a long, long time, ever since the first generation researchers like Harold Weisberg, Shirley Martin, Beverly Brunson, and now that we've been talking about this for more than a year now, that the advances in computer technology and optics and digitization of images, we're able to do things that we had never been able to do before, and I believe that now we have proven that it's actually Lee in the Doorway, and not only Lee in the Doorway, but we have also placed Billy Lovelady in his proper position. So without any further ado, let's show our audience, how we went about doing this. Okay, so like I just said, this presentation attempted to identify the man in the doorway, either Lee Oswald or Billy Lovelady, based on the Alton 6 photograph, which shows the entrance of the Texas School Book Depository at the top of the front entrance steps at the same time that President Kennedy is being shot. He's already been shot at least 2 or 3 times, and he is reacting to the...
Well, he's been, at this point, Larry, he's been hit twice. He's been hit in the back about 5.5 inches below the collar to the right of the spinal column. And here he's reacting to the shot to the throat, which was fired through the windshield.
That's right, the shot to the front. So way in the back there where we have marked this, the image, and then we have an inset that shows that group of people that were there in the doorway. And if you go on to the next slide, we'll show you what that area is all about. And these figures here have been extremely controversial over the years. And like I said, now the advances in computer technology and facial recognition allow us to decisively identify these 2 gentlemen.
Why don't you talk about their names? Usually the fellow who seems to have a towel over his shoulder is known as Doorman. The figure behind him, who's both in front of and behind him at the same time, is Black Tie Man. And the figure with his hands raised, whose face has been blacked out, is Black Hole Man. And right in front of him, it's obvious someone's face has been obfuscated.
Yeah. And known as Obfuscated Man. So,
yeah, but after tonight, he's not going to be known as Black Hole Man any longer.
Yeah, or Doorman. So then the next slide shows the individual in question, which is a super blow-up of that area. And I wanted to also mention that particular slide before is is work that was done by Robert Groden in his book, The Search for Lee Harvey Oswald, an image that has been used as quote unquote absolute proof that it was Billy Lovelady in the doorway. Now, we have been working on this since 2012, the Oswald Innocence Campaign, when it was first founded, and all of the people that are members there, senior members, we feel are now vindicated. Not only that group of people, but like I said, the investigators that preceded us in the 60s. And like I said, this is nothing new. It's been talked about and written about for many, many decades. But now we're able to decisively identify them. You want to go on to the next?
Yes, Larry. As you are implying, all of the members of the Oswald Innocence Campaign have concluded that the figure, the doorman, was in fact Lee Harvey Oswald on the basis of his height, his weight, his build, his shirt, and his T-shirt, in comparison to Billy Lovelady, who described himself as 2 to 3 inches shorter, 15 to 20 pounds heavier, and who was wearing a short sleeve red and white vertically striped shirt. So what you have done is carry the proof forward in a decisive fashion using new technology now available.
That's right, and that is the man in question. And if we go on to the next slide, we'll see what you were just mentioning, Billy Lovelady, on 2/29/1964, the photo shoot the FBI did, where they asked him to come in for photo shoot, and asked him to wear the shirt that he had on that day, and he went very innocently, and he went, and that's what they photographed him in. And we've always wondered why they had the top buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4 buttons open, and displaying the shirt open, sort of trying to make them look like doorman. So this has been something that they have been hiding for so long.
Well, this is actually the deepest, darkest secret in the history of the study of the assassination of JFK.
That's right.
Okay. Now, I want to ask a question, if it's okay. All right, this is the shirt that the FBI took. It's a striped shirt. We know that. Now, how, as much as I've heard y'all talk about it, do we have Gorilla Man and the shirt that he's wearing? What was always the confusion about Gorilla Man and the shirt that Billy Lovelady supposedly...
Well, we have some images, Gary. Just hang on. The fact is they realized that Billy wasn't going to play, especially wearing the red and white vertically striped shirt. So they tried to portray Gorilla Man as having been Billy, which is ridiculous, as Larry will explain.
I've been really thinking about that, and it all comes back to, and I might sound crazy or something like that, but it seems to me that this operation, where we have talked about the multiple patsy scenario, that if you have multiple patsies, then you had to have had multiple stand-ins, and imposters. Okay, so.
Yeah. But this guy is huge. He's humongous. Yeah. He's twice as big as Lee Oswald, and he looks like a gorilla. I mean, let's go forward. You have some pictures of him, I know, Larry. So let's get there.
Yeah, well, the reason, one of the most important functions of that slide that you showed before, the photo shoot, the FBI, one of the important things about this is that these are known photographs of Billy Lovelady. There is no doubt here, and we can use these to calibrate the facial recognition system that we're going to show here tonight, so that we can use that information and work from there onto the overlays.
These photographs were taken by the FBI, sent to Director Hoover, and where they also appear as commission exhibits. So it's clear that the government is certified. These are photographs of Billy Nolan Lovelady.
That's right. There's no doubt here. And of course, this is Lee Oswald, the night of November 22nd, 1963, wearing exactly the same shirt he had on during the entire day, including when he was arrested at the Texas Theater. He was wearing this shirt. We did a show on that a couple of months ago, based on the shirt, the travails of the rust-colored shirt, and so it's a shirt that was a very special type of tweed mixture of brownish, reddish. I don't know, Jim. How would you describe that?
It's a reddish brown shirt of a rich texture. That's right. It's a long sleeve, richly woven shirt, reddish brown in color.
Right. And it had maybe some gold tones in there, very faint gold tones, It made it a very special shirt because I just today and yesterday we've been working on blurring the actual shirt that's at the National Archives, that color, which we're going to show it in the next slide. Which is at the National Archives, and what we have done is we have up right there on the left. That's the actual shirt that Lee was wearing that day, and we have taken that shirt and processed it digitally to blur it in certain manners that when you lay it side by side to Doorman, it's an exact match, Jim. I mean, I don't know how you know, and
Oh,
Judith.
no, Larry. Now you're talking about Judith's work.
That's right, which I replicated. And the reason I wanted to bring it up is Judith. I replicated this for you, and I've already exchanged emails with her, and she is so happy because obviously replication is a manner of confirmation, and so you know, we've gotten the exact. I think my results are better though. Okay, so we'll go on to the next one. Right. This is the John Martin film, which first came out right after the assassination. It was used for a compilation that was done for the Dallas Cinema Associates. And in its original incarnation, it was the film was underexposed. Underexposed means that it is darker in the tones, okay? And as if it had been done on purpose. But this man here, as you were mentioning, known as Gorilla Man, and the House Select Commission on Assassination identified this guy as Billy Lovelady. Okay, and as you have mentioned, he's a lot larger, you know, totally different body type. We've done studies of the skull and the profile.
And notice he's not wearing a red and white vertically
striped shirt. Of course not. Of course not. And I could talk for hours about this because when Bruton and Groden went to Colorado, Kenneth Bruton and Robert Groden, of course, to interview Billy Lovelady. They went there asking him, and many of the questions had to do if he had a growth of beard. Okay, now the growth of beard is shown here because of the underexposing of the film. Okay, now if you go to the next slide, I'm going to show you. Okay, this is what the film really looked like. Okay, and if you look at this guy, he doesn't have a growth of beard. You know, maybe you know, shaven. You know.
Not only that, Larry, but he has his shirt buttoned up right to the top. So
that's right.
You know, how they think they could palm off this guy as doorman is beyond me. I mean, it's such a stretch. It's not credible even remotely.
I know, as Billy Lovelady, okay? And Harold Weisberg noticed that originally, what you just mentioned, that he had his shirt buttoned all the way to the top. And what we have talked about many, many times, I don't know, about the pocket with the flap and the button, okay? And if we go on.
I think I finally get it. So the HSCA says that this was Doorman, and it was Billy Lovelady.
And Billy Lovelady. You know,
look
Billy
how ridiculous it is, Gary.
Okay.
Now, okay. In other words, if you were to follow logic, you know, the logic is completely upside down. Doesn't even work because if you say first of all, you can't say that he's Doorman because you don't have proof. But then if they want Doorman to be Billy Lovelady, then this guy has to be Billy Lovelady. Only in the interviews that we did, that we transcribed, Gary and I, Lovelady wasn't in the front of the building. He went in the back with Bill Shelley, and then he stayed around on the first floor waiting for the other employees. And they gathered all the employees there up to 15, 20 minutes after the assassination. And Shelley and Lovelady went to the railroad yards to watch the policemen looking for searching the cars and looking for evidence back there, you know, and they stayed there for a while, and then they went in the back through the back entrance, one of the back entrances via the loading dock there, and Billy Lovelady never went close to the front of the building, and it's borne out by the interview of Kenneth Bruton with Lovelady in 1976 with Gary and I so painstakingly transcribed a couple of months ago. Isn't that right, Gary?
Man, it takes a long time. I'm telling you. You'd think they would transcribe a tape, but we did it, and it's made a lot of headway and more contributions. JFK. That's what we do.
Well, the most important thing about this tape is that when Bruton asked Lovelady if Lee Oswald could have been there in the doorway with him, Lovelady said could have. And what does Bruton do right after that? He changes the conversation and he says, okay, let's go on to the next set of questions.
I have to admit, I've never dealt with poor quality audio. I mean, that was rough audio.
Well, but Gary, you got to realize that was deliberate too.
Yeah.
My point being, exactly, Jim, thank you, because if you're a lawyer and a witness, let's say in any case, in any setting, says something like that, blurts out something like that, what are you as a lawyer going to say? you're going to go and pursue what he just said, and you're going to, barge right through that
Larry,
door.
that's only if you're pursuing the truth.
That's right.
All right. So real quickly, did Billy Lovelady escape all photographs except in the Algin 6? Is there any other picture of the striped shirt with Billy Lovelady?
No, we don't. No, we don't.
Okay.
Okay, so the next slide shows what I mean about the comparison of the two shirts with the underexposed and the normal exposure. And if you go on to the next slide real quickly, this is an animation showing how, it worked good. Okay, the difference when you run this animation, you realize how when they showed the underexposed film, it is so dark that you can't even notice the white lines, and especially the pocket flap. They're the pocket and the pocket flap. They sort of like bleed into each other, so it's not even discernible there. So
his beard disappears like he's got nair on his face.
That's right. And well, that's I don't know what those two guys were up to, but they weren't with the truth. Okay, go on to the next slide. Now, this is what we've shown this one a few times. We can just quickly just mention about the pocket.
So, Larry, remember, you're explaining all this to the audience who haven't seen it before.
Right. And at left, and this is all from Robert Groden's book, Killing of a President, page 187. On the very same page, he's got Lovelady with a pocket flap and Lovelady without a pocket flap. Okay, so obviously, and a pocket and flap and a button.
Well, you want to explain that Robert Groden had Billy Lovelady put on this checkered shirt. Groden appears to have overlooked that it could not possibly have been the same shirt that was on Gorilla Man because it does not have a pocket. But the fact is that Groden was promoting a thesis that has no basis whatsoever other than that Gorilla Man was standing in front of the book depository at the time.
It's, like Johnny Cochran used to say, remember, Jim, if it doesn't fit,
you must have quit.
Yeah.
If it ain't got no flap, it's a bunch of crap.
I like it, Gary.
On to the next slide, because this is also another example here of the, because not only on that particular set of images, the color images, but in this 1971 photo by Tom Jackson, and we have exactly the same situation. So they can't say that we're cherry picking here on Groden. It wasn't just Groden, it was also Tom Jackson, who also tried to obfuscate this.
Sorry, there wasn't any cherry picking when the photo taken at the time has a flap and the other photos don't. There's nothing cherry about that.
No, I'm talking about the previous photos with Groden, the ones that Groden took in 1976. Okay, these are facial recognition terms. Now, Jimmy, you gotta click once. Okay, interpupillary distance, next perspective. These are terms that we're gonna deal with today. Facial symmetry, layers and image overlays, opacity values, scaling and alignment, photogrammetry, biometrics, and computers and software, which tie all of the above in one package so we can study facial recognition. And I believe the next slide should have some audio once you start clicking. No? Okay, good. We'll just read it quickly here. Image overlaying and facial recognition using image overlaying software widely used and accepted in the field of forensic science. Now the following is quoted verbatim from this source. Okay, the procedure the procedure of the comparison can be quantitative using relative or absolute dimensions. In a morphological comparison, the location and size of the features is measured relatively, not absolutely. If the perspectives of the question and known images are similar and the position of the head is similar, the image depicting the known individual can be scaled to that of the questioned individual using interpupillary distance or other consistent features within the image. An overlay of the scale known image and the questioned image can then be made in order to determine if the relative alignment of other facial features is consistent. This overlay of images is also referred to as a superimposition method and can be performed with video editing or image processing equipment. A variation of the overlay approach is a photogrammetric one. Now, this is a side-by-side where we align the images side-by-side and we run lines across the features. Okay, and we're going to see a few examples of that coming up because we start with our calibration and then on all the way through the two individuals. And this is for both a photogrammetric and overlay approach. The images must be of the same perspective, but the key difference is that with an overlay, it allows one to view the length and width simultaneously. That's the one on the right. The photogrammetric is the one on the left. Although viewing the lines in the photogrammetric approach leaves more to human perception as one looks across both images. Superimposition can appear to be doctoring the evidence if not properly explained, because scaling implies changing the images to effect alignment, but the method is sound, emphasis ours. Therefore, a superimposition can provide extremely, I don't see...
Beneficial information.
Yeah, because you're covering there on that side. To determine if features appear to be the same and if the relative position and dimensions relate. And the next, with an overlay, the examiner can blink back and forth between question and known imagery to assist in the comparison by identifying similarities and dissimilarities. In this type of comparison, facial landmarks, standard reference marks generally defined by the underlying structure of the skull, are used in the main as guides and are not typically measured. Now, this is, we've laid all of this out so that our audience can appreciate that this is a very, very sophisticated science behind all of this. And it's been used in forensic work in police departments.
Of course, Larry. Of course.
Well, audience has to mention it. Okay, now this is our first subject, and it's Lee, and this is an image taken. It's a very compelling image. This one with him, in handcuffs and everything. But as you can see, it's flipping back and forth because the image that we're going to use is that same image but flipped. Okay, because the
point is that the man in the doorway has his head at a certain alignment. So to make the comparison, you need to get the head of Billy Lovelady and the head of Lee Oswald in similar alignment.
That's right, and it's called perspective. That's why in the terminology that we established earlier, we talked about perspective, and this is exactly what we're talking about. Our probe image, which is the one that we're going to be overlaying onto, which is doorman, which up to this point is unidentified, okay? But these images that we're looking for are of the same perspective and alignment so that we can start doing overlays. And for that, we need this facial symmetry test, okay? Because if we're gonna use flipped images, we need to make sure that the symmetry of the faces of these two individuals are not the same exactly, because no face is exactly symmetrical, but reasonably symmetrical, where we can then go ahead and use a flipped image for our overlays. And with Lee Oswald here, these images are just incredibly
pretty symmetrical guy. Yeah.
Very symmetrical. And with Billy, you're going to see it. The same thing applies. Go ahead, next one. This is the same situation. Okay, this is Billy in 1976. So he's a little bit older. And that is also going to factor into what we're going to present here, because this method works not just with photographs of a couple of years, but as I will show, I have an example here of an individual where there is a 44-year difference. Okay, and yet even after 44 years, the features align perfectly. Okay, and we're going to show that in the next slide, in the slide coming up. Now, this is a facial symmetry test with Billy with normal and flipped to the right, and then combined at 50% opacity. Again, we see a very, very high degree of symmetry here with Billy Lovelady.
You notice he has quite an indentation in his skull at the temple.
I know, I know. That's why these FBI photographs were so incredibly important in this study, Jim, because you can see that is a very particular feature of his. You know, those indentations here around the temple area. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Next one. Finally, doorman. This is the man that we're going to be trying to identify here tonight, and this is a close-up of doorman. I want to add that this is a Dennis Camino enhancement, just an enhancement in the sense that he removed the mottled effect here, or the grainy effect, and I thought he did a fantastic job because with this image, we can really work with this image on the overlays. Okay, now next one. I wanted to add that the relative position of doorman, many people think he's up against the west wall of the entrance, and that's not the case at all. He's standing right there in the middle of the entrance, but due to...
That's an illusion because of the angle at which Alston was taking the photograph.
I thought that myself for a long time, I have to admit.
And a phenomenon known as foreshortening. Okay, as you see, Alston's is way down Elm Street, but due to the telephoto lens, the focal length of his camera, even the film and everything, you see this foreshortening of the image, where images seem to be one on top of another. Okay, so when we put both of our gallery, now this next term is very important because these are known as gallery images. Okay, those are the ones that we use as overlays to overlay onto our probe, which in this case is doorman. Okay, and now there's a third photograph of Billy Lovelady, which came out of this photo shoot. Okay, and again in 1971, Bob Jackson posed Lovelady up there because this thing about the shirt sort of kept coming back, you know, Jim. And
don't you think Billy found it very odd they wanted him to wear a shirt other than the shirt he was wearing at the time?
No, not only that, look at how small this shirt looks on him. You know, it's not even, I don't think it's even the same size, you know?
No, it's ridiculous. It's too small.
Yeah, and if you notice here, he's wearing sideburns, okay? And that's what I wanted to get at because why is this photograph?
It's apparent to me the left sleeve has been altered too, Larry.
It's
look at the left sleeve. The pattern is not right.
Well, another thing, Jim, the deception of this one is, you know, really goes through the roof because you see he's posing him on the third step. We know that doorman was up on the top step on the landing, right before the glass doors. So why would he put him there on the third step? And Billy knows that's not where he was standing.
And he also knows he's 2 to 3 inches shorter than Lee.
And a lot heavier, at least 20.
And a lot heavier.
Okay, so the reason, this is why that last slide was important, because from that photo shoot, they produced this photo, which apparently had never been published because it was only published when Billy Lovelady died in 1979. Okay, now this is a non-flip image. This is very important because when they posed them, they gave us exactly the same perspective alignment as doorman. So this one here was like shooting fish in a barrel, Jim, you know. Once I got a hold of this one, I said, oh man, I'm going to go to town on this one because now my detractors can't say that I'm using a flipped image. Okay?
Right, and this is almost a perfect angle for doorman.
That's right, and you can see how they are intentionally pursing his lips, you know, and
squinting his eyes.
Yeah, and that's important also because the squinting of the eyes, and we're going to find later on why that's important. But go ahead, we're going on to the next slide. And these are test overlays. Now we're going to calibrate the system. And two beautiful women. I think we've done this one before, but I don't mind doing it again. Marilyn Monroe and Jennifer Lopez. Okay, obviously two very different women. But what we're going to do here is we're going to calibrate by setting the interpupillary distance of the two, and then just let the image fall according to that, okay? And in these experiments, what we do is we set a grid and ruler, okay? So from there, we can draw empirical data. When I mention empirical data, obviously measuring every square where we can, where we can translate.
You're really getting quantitative or more precise qualitative by using the framework provided by the matrix.
That's right. Oh, I couldn't have put it better, Jim. Thank you. Okay, the next slide. And I'm sorry, on the right, you can see
they're obviously not the same.
Obviously not the same person. You know, the nose is, her face is longer, you know, the lips, you know, fall way below Marilyn, you know. So,
and of course, this is no surprise because no one would have ever supposed they were.
Yeah, I know, but except for this one coming up right here, Marilyn and Jane Mansfield, okay, where, you know, the hairstyle and everything, the hairdo was exactly the same, okay, but obviously the women are not the same. And when we set the interpupillary distance, we see a larger mouth, the contour of the face.
Jane Mansfield could never compare with Marilyn.
Of course not.
A lot closer than Lopez.
Well, of course.
Yeah, you're right, Gary. Okay, next one. And here is a 5-panel collage there showing as the opacity goes from left to right, top to bottom. Okay, and you can see how the system works. Okay,
this is so unflattering to Jane Mansfield.
Yeah. So actually, what we're doing is increasing the opacity from left to right. And now we're gonna do test overlays of Marilyn herself and see what we come up with. All right, and we have these two different photos, shorter hair, okay, but once we do the overlay, next slide.
Yeah, just a quick side note, James Mansfield died roughly 20 miles from here.
Yeah, in a car accident, yeah.
She was decapitated.
Right.
Okay, so the left image is the first one with the 0 opacity. I went straight from 0 to 50 to 100. Here because obviously, you know, the features line up perfectly. The birthmark over her left lip there, the perioral crease there area, the eyebrows, the eyes, everything lines up perfectly. So when this demonstrates what this system is capable of doing here. And if we go on to the next, I love this one because this guy, Ramon Flores, was involved in a murder case in Ohio. Okay, and he decided that maybe he should leave.
Change his appearance.
Yeah, disappear for a while. Well, he disappeared for 44 years, and they finally found him in a town called Santa Isabel in Puerto Rico, in the southern part of Puerto Rico. And I saw these two images in the newspaper. I said, "Oh man, these are perfect," you know. And so I started playing around with them, you know. And I came up with this, okay? Now, left to right, top to bottom, okay? As the opacity increases, we notice that the features do not move at all, okay? And that's another thing. When we start looking at the GIFs, that our audience needs to look at the GIF 2 or 3 times and focus on the movement or the non-movement of the features.
Especially the nose.
That's right, because if the features are moving all over the place, then you know it's not the same person. But if the features stay in the same relative position, then we know we have a pretty good match. Now, one of our test subjects, Lee Oswald, okay, and I believe we've shown this before, but we'll show it again. There's about an 8-year difference. Correct me, Jim, if I'm wrong. And he went into what, in 56? Or
you know, the one on the left bottom is the one I always thought was anomalous. That's the only one that ever caused me pause as to whether there might be more than one Lee Oswald. But your study establishes conclusively there's one and only one. So
but that maybe the rest. Yeah.
The top left was the Marine photograph with the bull neck, and we discussed this before. As he aged, as he got out of the service, he's not in the physical training that he's been before in the Marines, so his neck gets a little smaller, but the features all seem to line up, which we're going to show in the next couple of slides, because this one is really compelling, especially for those John Armstrong fans that think that there were 2 Lee Oswalds, okay, and well, we're not going to go over that, but
right.
But I
was troubled that a few of the speakers at the conference obviously bought into it.
Yeah. So so what we've done here, we've color coded those same photographs. Go ahead, you can click. Okay. the passport photo. The bottom one is the NOPD photo from the lineup, and November 22nd, 1963. Now, something important to mention here is that when Lee Oswald was arrested at the Texas Theater, they beat the hell out of him. They beat the crap out of him. And he's got his left eyebrow, as you can see, is puffed and swollen, okay? So that's the only anomaly that we're going to run into when we start doing overlays with that photograph. And this is a really nifty GIF showing those same 4 images. And as you can see, the features don't move at all. You know, once you go from one to the next, except for this one, which is the Dallas photograph, which you can see the left eyebrow moves a little bit higher. Okay, now next slide is.
You're saying left when you look at it. It's actually his right eyebrow.
Right. But physiologically speaking, the left. Photogrammetry. This one is really nice because when you run the red line across the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, you see that everything falls into place perfectly. You know, I can't. You know, this is
wonderful work. No one's ever done this so precisely before, Larry.
Yeah. Thank you. And when you set the grid and the ruler, okay, then you can even draw graphs and everything. Feed this to the computer, you know, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so next slide. Okay, now this is going a little more into detail because Lee Oswald, there's only 3 months difference between the August photograph on the right, which is the NOPD photograph, and the one to the left, which is the Dallas. And so being that small amount of time between one and the other, I figured that we should use this also to calibrate, and we go on to the next slide.
And NOPD, New Orleans Police Department, when he was arrested after an altercation there in front of the trademark.
That's right, with Carlos Bringuier, and they all got before the judge, and Lee was the only one that you know, they were going to throw him in jail and everything, and got fined and all that. Okay, so from left to right, top to bottom, as we increase opacity, we notice that all the features line up perfectly: the eyes, the eyebrows, the nose, the mouth, the chin. So here we can safely say that it's one and the same person. And our very next slide. Obviously, if we calibrate with Lee, we got to calibrate with Billy Lovelady, and we've got the 1967 CBS photograph. Now, this is a very interesting photo shoot because CBS in 1967 was going to come out with a huge documentary, okay, covering everything about the assassination. Would have been the 4th anniversary, and at the very last moment, they pulled the plug on it. You know. There are many rumors about why, but this one photograph is very important because we can use this photograph from 1967 to do experiments with not Doorman, but with Black Hole Man. And we will see the results later on because I think the one on the right is the older Lovelady from the Grodin House Select Committee of Assassinations. Okay, now top left is the FBI photo of Lovelady, and we're working with the 1967 CBS photo, left to right, top to bottom, and as we can see, all the features line up. However, since he is squinting his eyes in the 1967 CBS photograph, we notice that difference, but everything else, the nose, the lips, the chin, the ears, everything lines up perfectly here, Jim. Okay, now this is using the older Lovelady photo. That's why it was important to establish the reliability of the system when we use photographs that have, you know, years in between one another. Okay, and in this, we're only talking here about what 63 and 76, 13 years. Okay, and you can see that Billy's face is a lot thinner, drawn. Okay.
Yeah. He aged a lot. He aged an awful lot.
Gary, I would have aged too if I had that on my shoulders, you know, for so many years, you know.
The Kennedy assassination was not kind to anyone.
Right. No, he was forced to carry this burden, you know. I think, you know, down deep, Billy was a good guy, you know, and I have my studies, in my studies, I've concluded that there towards the end in 1976, he didn't want to keep this lie going,
Well, when Jones Harris flew down to Dallas and spoke with Billy, he admitted he'd been wearing the short sleeve red and white vertically striped shirt.
That's right. The one that he was photographed by the FBI.
Right.
And now this is a photogrammetric comparison between Lee and Billy, where we notice the width of the face, the chin, totally different face shapes and everything.
This photo on the left, the one that's always puzzled me a bit, is by far the best photograph in terms of making him look like a handsome guy.
Yeah, and here, when you compare and you look back and forth between one and the other, you notice those deep indentations in the temple area, So
yeah, in Billy, right.
Yeah, okay, next. Now, these are, the reason I put these up is to demonstrate how we can set these grid and rulers onto the face. In this point, in this photo, once we set these, this grid, what we are attempting to do is set the crosshairs right across the pupils. Okay, if you look closely, you'll see that the vertical and horizontal lines here are intersecting right in the middle of the pupils. Okay, now this is important because now from here we can work with, like you were talking about, quantitative data, empirical data, which later on can be used in any set of results or whatever you want to set in your paper or your investigation, your results. And like I said, very, very important information to be gleaned out of this. And again, also we got the same effect here with Lee. We set the interpupillary distance, those crosshairs, and you can go on to the next one. This is important here because you can see a part of Doorman's ear, actually his right ear, left when you're facing the photograph.
Look at the enormous difference in the location of their ears relative to their skulls.
Exactly.
That's huge, Larry.
Yeah, well, and that's why it's important. It's very important consideration because you're looking at the individuals from the front, but you're not really looking at the profiles. So I don't think anybody had really looked at this. Okay, so the next now we start looking at results. Okay, and this first set of results is Billy with the 1976 Grodin photo. And as we go left to right, top to bottom, we can see.
Just done work.
Yeah, you'll be able to appreciate once we run the animations, okay? But here it's just showing you how the opacity, and once we tint the image, you can see the opacity increasing from left to right, top to bottom. And a very important thing, detail here that I wanted to mention that's going to come out later, but we need to stress it, is that shadow of the nose, okay? The shadow under the nose, once you start, especially on this one, and if you go on to the next slide, you can appreciate it better. This is an animation, and again, the features are moving all over the place, but notice that the nose in this individual is not,
it's not casting the shadow in the right place.
Yeah, it's displaced from the shadow, okay? It's not, that nose and that shadow do not correspond to one another.
Discrepant, right. They don't correspond. Yeah.
Looks like Pinocchio. He just keeps growing. The nose just keeps growing.
That's right. I know that's one area of difference. If you notice the lips, they come higher. If you notice, look at the eyebrows, how they start arching, okay, above those of Doorman, So that's the key to these animations, to watch them, 2 or 3 or 4 times in repetitive fashion. And that way you can really, really appreciate the difference between one another. And we'll go on to the next one. And this is a grid overlay again of the previous, okay, for those who want to draw data out of this. And again, we notice the displacement of the shadow of the nose cast by Doorman. Okay, now this is the second non-flip image, okay, the Dallas Times Herald photograph. And I thought this one was even more compelling. I want to mention this while we're talking about this. Even if we were to exclude Lee Oswald from this experiment okay, and just work on the Love Lady images, okay, it just doesn't work out for Billy, okay? And here we have the non-flipped image, and this one is a classic because it's if you look closely, the ear, the reason we get this effect is because as we have to scale Billy's face inwards, because the pupils, the eyes, since Billy's face is wider, when we try to line him up with Doorman, the face has to get thinner, okay? And for that reason, now the ear does not reach the ear of Doorman, okay? So, and here obviously the eyebrows, the nose, again, the lips, they just do not match up. And the next image is going to, I believe, the overlay of that, the animation. Yeah, that's, and all you got to do is look at these a couple of times and you'll see that it's not the same individual, okay?
Yeah.
And
his nose looks like he's dancing.
yeah. Again, the key to these is to watch, if there's movement or non-movement of the features, Gary. Okay, next one. Okay, observations on this. Once interpupillary distance had been set, we attempted to scale the image of Lovelady as much as possible to match that of Doorman. Here are the anomalies. Nose is rounder, larger, more bulbous. The bridge is different. The nose shifts to the right, displacing it from the shadow cast by the nose of Doorman. There is slightly more space between the lower lip and the tip of the what does it say there, Jim?
Chin.
Okay, which brings the mouth slightly higher. Yeah, okay, now I got it. Eyebrows are more rounded and arched, and there is more space between eyes and brow ridge. The shape of the chin is different, and the face is wider, as we have mentioned already. The forehead is swept back at a different lower angle. Now we start working with images of Lee Oswald. At the very top, zero opacity. At the bottom, I believe we reach 35 or 40% opacity. We don't have to go past that because by then we already have enough opacity to be able to evaluate the overlay. Okay, and go on to the next. I believe we start. This is a grid and ruler overlay onto that. We start to see that the Lee Oswald image of November 22nd, 1963, the one that we flipped earlier, seems to everything line up, except for now, remember, since we had it flipped, and the eyebrow that was swollen is now on the right, okay? Where it used to be on the left, but once we flip the image, are you following here what I'm saying? So on the right is you're gonna see that area is going to move a little bit, but that's the only reason why, because that's when they beat him up and his eyebrow was swollen. Okay, interpupillary distance between Oswald and Doorman is the same, which makes the eyes line up perfectly. The nose matches, including the bridge and general conformation. More importantly, the nose is in perfect position to cast the shadow seen below Doorman's nose, which was caused by the noon sun. Lips, which are pursed in a particular and specific manner, are a match. The eyebrows and brow ridge are more horizontal and are a match. The high forehead is a match. The chin matches in size and shape. The face matches in both width and length or height. Now, we start doing photogrammetric side-by-side comparisons between both of our subjects here. And here we have a grid and ruler. And our next image here, we're going to run a couple of lines across. And as you can see, this is the photogrammetric side of the experiment, and we see that the eyebrows again are completely different. The nose, the chin. Okay, we can see that the shape of the chin here is completely different, and what can I say? The next image is using the non-flipped image, which we had already seen, which was almost ridiculous here, okay? It's not even natural looking, okay? And when they pursed his lips, he was trying to make him look like Lee, but nobody can look like Lee, I guess. Okay, now these are really, really good because you have the animated GIFs running side by side, okay? And you can really appreciate, just flip back and forth, and you can see, you know, which one of the two looks more like doorman, or again, which one of the two do you have more movement of the features as the overlay increases in opacity. That's the key here. That's what you're seeing here. You're seeing the interaction between the probe image and the gallery image as opacity increases from 0 to whatever we have it set to. This here is up to 50%. Okay. If we go past 50, what happens is that the gallery image completely overtakes the probe. Okay, so it doesn't have any evidentiary value. Okay, so that's why we only go up to 45, 50% in opacity. And again, here is the non-flip, and you know, difference is just night and day, Jim. You know, any comments over there from you guys?
Yeah, no, I agree completely, Larry. I mean, these are spectacular results, really.
Thank you. Now, our next slide, the reason I stuck this one in was to illustrate the what I was talking about earlier about how the head has to be scaled inwards, you know, and he ends up looking almost. Remember the cone heads of Saturday Night Live?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's just no natural fit for Billy Lovelady's skull on Doorman's skull.
Yeah, but believe it or not, if you look closely at this grid, the grid lines are not there at random, okay? If you project the grid lines across, you'll see that they cross exactly where the eyes are going in the horizontal plane there, and in the vertical plane here, where you have the Lee Oswald in blue over the Lovelady adjusted where it says this. If you project the lines vertically down, you'll see that they are exactly matching, which is the reason why I set these here the way I did, okay? Because that's the only way that we can have those two individuals match each other, okay? And to the left, we have Doorman, which Lee, we've already matched them up, but when you try to match them up with Billy, it just doesn't work. Next one. And of course, this is the winner. And I believe when we did this last year, when we were talking about Lee and Billy here, we said that the winner of this horse race was Lee Oswald by a nose, okay, because the nose falls in perfect alignment with that shadow. And again, the lips, the eyes, everything is in perfect position, okay, in this overlay. So I have to conclude that Doorman here is Lee Harvey Oswald.
And but not Billy Nolan Lovelady.
Not Billy Nolan Lovelady. But Jim, where was Billy Lovelady in the Auction 6 if he's not Doorman? Go ahead to the next one. That's what we want to find out. We got a running hypothesis here that says the man standing against the east wall of the entrance on the top step, shielding his eyes from the sun. And that's this individual, okay, which we have suspected all along. Because look at the shirt. This shirt sleeve is rolled up the way it is. You see, if you see the left arm, the right, when you're looking at the photograph, it seems like he's got that shirt sleeve. It's a short sleeve, and it's rolled up there above the elbow. Now, Roy Lewis, who knew Billy Lovelady very well, because he bought a car from Billy Lovelady, so he knew him pretty good. And Roy told me in an interview last year that's the way that Billy used to wear his shirts, okay? And so I'm just throwing that out at you. You know, this is like a little tidbit that probably we've never spoken about before, but that happens to be a fact. And the next image is a close-up of this is known as Black Hole Man.
I like the lower left. Is this from Dennis, or did you do this?
No, I did this.
Very nice.
The next one is a close-up of that, and you'll be able to appreciate it even better. Yeah, there you go. And this was there. It's been there all along. All you have to do is adjust the brightness, okay, of the image. You know, there's no type of manipulation here whatsoever. Once you adjust the brightness a little bit, those features really come up, okay? And notice those laugh lines or perioral creases is what they are known as in physiology. And and also known as laugh lines. And they are so extremely important, Jim, because they happen to be an identifier, okay? The same as the eyes and the nose and the lips can be identifiers, those areas there are identifiers as well. We don't even need the eyes here in this case. Even though you can see a little bit of the eye there, if you look right where his pinky is there in front there, you can see a little bit of outline of the eye. I don't know about you, but
we see it. We see it.
Yeah, okay. So go ahead on to the next. Okay, these are results that we have, again, proving how valuable that FBI photo shoot was, because since it's a completely frontal shot of Black Hole Man, we're able to use frontal shots of Billy Lovelady. And this one, as you can see, when the opacity goes, as we increase the opacity, the lips, the nose, the chin, and that crease there around his mouth seem to line up pretty well. Okay, now the next one. This is an animation of that first image. Okay, and again, what our audience who are going to be watching this on YouTube have to notice here is how the lips, the mouth, the upper lip, and the right eye do not move once this animation is going here, once the opacity starts to increase. Okay, and all you got to do is watch these a couple of times. First, focus on the lips, okay? And then on the next run, focus on the nose, all right? Then on the perioral creases, you know, and you'll see that everything seems to line up with this individual. And we got the next ones are even more compelling as far as I'm concerned. Go ahead. Okay, first we cover a photogrammetric comparison of the two. And in this case, we also have a vertical line coming down completely down the nose. And as you can see, across, as you can see, the lips, okay, they cross right through them perfectly, the nose, the eye, okay. So we have a pretty good indication that this might be a Lovelady. Okay, the next one. Now, this is the star here of this whole presentation, because the 1967 CBS image of Lovelady that we used earlier in our calibration offers a perfect opportunity because he's squinting, okay, in the sun. They put him there under the sun, you know, without any protection, okay, and he's naturally squinting. When he does that, he draws those creases up more than normal, and people tend to do that as an involuntary reaction, okay? Just about everybody does it. You squint your eyes, you know, and you bring those perioral creases up, you know, and that's what Billy is doing here. And this was a magnificent opportunity to test him as Black Hole Man. And when I did, this was the result. This happens to go all the way to 100% opacity because I wanted the audience to really appreciate how those features don't move at all, okay? The mouth, the nose, the eye, you know, and everything, and it seems to me like we have our man here. And once we run the animation coming up, you'll be able to appreciate it. Here is at 50% opacity first. Now, okay, this is a still image, and then the next one is our animation. You can just let that run a couple of times there, and people can appreciate how those features do not move at all. And look at the mouth, then the nose, okay, then the eye. And the basic, you can also make basic shapes here. Almost the ear, once the ear seems like it's in position. Don't forget that he's in the shadows here, but he's also, he's half in the shadows, half in the sunlight, and he's protecting himself. So, but even though that is the case, we're able to extract those features there and prove here, because I believe we have proven here that it actually is Billy Lovelady. And the next slide is going to show us the photogrammetrics, okay, that go with that. And again, the lips cross perfectly, the nose, you know, and that's about it here, Jim. I think, okay, here what we have is, you know, playing around with Photoshop. We've got both individuals. If you look closely here, you'll see that both Doorman and, well, we can say who they are now, Lee and Billy, as they are as the opacity increases. And what we did here was kind of neat. We have actually fitted him with the shirt that he was wearing at the FBI that day, and even the shirt, when I put it in there, it seemed to fit like
it's right on him.
I didn't have to do much manipulation, just cut a little bit here and there, like paper dolls, and then.
Now you can see why they whited out that area so you couldn't see the red and white vertical stripes.
Thank you. I bet you when that photo first came out, before it was altered, that stuck out like a sore thumb.
They were proverbial bricks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then,
this is such wonderful work, Larry. I've told you before, but I regard this presentation as the single most important in the entire history of JFK research. Because what you're doing is revealing the deepest, darkest secret of the government, namely that Lee was in the doorway when the motorcade passed, which means that he not only cannot have been the lone demented gunman, he cannot have even been one of the shooters.
That's right, and the implications are just mind-boggling, Jim. And put up the next slide, because I like this one because you get a little bit of artist license, and then dressed doorman or Lee in the shirt that he was wearing.
And of course, Billy's shirt undoubtedly was buttoned, not unbuttoned.
I know. I could have done it. I know. And I could have done it because, you can do that on Photoshop. It's called liquefying. You can liquefy that and join it there, But I figured, I'd leave them like that. But this is what that photograph looked like on November 22nd before they sent it.
And I'm certain the audience was swooning at this point in time.
Oh yeah. You should have seen the faces on these people, Jim. They were just because once you're up there on the podium, you making eye contact with everybody, and it's. And the question and answer session afterwards, the people showed that they really understood this concept, okay, and the questions were intelligent questions. For example, one individual asked me, what about the hairline? It seems like it's Billy's hairline. And I said, man, that is a tremendously important question, because since we believe that the photograph has been altered, and there are many theories. I like Ralph's about the transferring of...
Gary, we don't just believe it. You got a missing shoulder on Doorman. You got a man who's in front of him and behind him, which is impossible. You got a man whose face is obfuscated. You got another man whose face is blacked out. His whole shirt has been obliterated. It's not just that we think it was altered, it's proven that it was altered massively.
I was going to add, I was telling the audience, I could talk here for 2 hours about the alterations of the Altgen 6 photograph, because we know of at least 12 to 15 different areas of alterations.
That's right, including the limousine.
Yeah, the limousine, the windshield. I mean, the windshield is just so egregious. It's,
Dennis did brilliant work on that.
Yeah, that's right. And then you can see Emory Roberts with a big blob over his mouth, where he's talking on a microphone. You see people with cameras, on the curb there of Elm Street, with cameras that have been completely blocked out. I mean, how can you say it hasn't been altered? But because it was out at 1:03 that afternoon, it was sent out on the wires. Well, that's not true. That's not true. It wasn't sent out on the wires,
So, when it's provably altered, you could nevertheless claim that it couldn't have been altered when it's already provably altered. I mean, people adopt an incoherent position.
I know. You already have the result, which is pretty obvious, Now, how do you work backwards
It's
from
like
there?
Josiah Thompson arguing that the chain of custody was such that the Zapruder film could not have been altered when the chain of custody was one with agents of the Secret Service who are complicit in the cover-up and who got the film where it needed to be at the time it needed to be there. I mean, it's an incredibly audacious argument that takes for granted a point that requires establishment, to wit that the Secret Service were acting with authenticity and integrity, which they manifestly were not.
Well, when in the case of the Zapruder film, when you have Secret Service complicity in the way that we know, where Bill Greer pulls the limo to a complete stop, and everything that happened now that we know based on the Fred Newcomb tapes, you know, which is just incredible stuff, you know, that happened down there on Elm Street, you know, then, you know.
Which we shall cover in another show, have already, in fact, before. We have 2 YouTubes up about it, the JFK Horseman Part 1 and the JFK Horseman Part 2. Larry, would you like to make a point?
And we got to plug the book, and soon to be published.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Well,
That's right.
That's life in JFK. And fellas, just a fantastic presentation. We'd like to thank Jim Fetzer, the engineer's chair, Larry Rivera, and myself. We'll see you next week. This is JFK 125.
All right.
Got one in the bag. All right, fellas, I gotta go. I've been kind of under the weather, so I'm gonna go ahead.
Gary, I'll render it and get it to you, my friend.
Okay.
Gary, great job.
Hey, Jim, that guy Frazier never called me.
Who never called you?
Wesley, remember that thing about Roy Lewis and Wesley Frazier that Wesley wanted to talk to Roy Lewis? Remember when I called you the other day?
Right.
Yeah, well, Wesley never called me. And I didn't hold my breath. I didn't think he was going to call me, so, you know, I didn't hold my breath.
Right. Let me see.
Okay, boss.
All right, my friend. Great work, Larry.
Thank you. Hey, go Lions.
Take care, my friend.
Okay, bye.
Bye now.
Coup d'etat in slow motion, connecting the dots between the assassinations of Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme, JFK, Robert Kennedy, and John Lennon. Now available on Amazon and lightonconspiracies.com. Coup d'etat in slow motion.
Moonrock Books. We're a group of scholars, experts, and authors who feel the world really needs saving, and that resisting the American empire is the right thing to do. People are starved for truth. They are given lies. They subsist on lies, but it's not really living. People are not watching TV news. They're ceasing to read newspapers too, because they know by now they will not find it there. The biggest battle being fought anywhere is with information. If the people can receive the truth, they will do the right thing. We are publishing the truth about Sandy Hook, about the Boston bombing, about the moon landings, about the Holocaust, and much, much more. The truth. It falls upon us to fight the empire and save the world. Join us, Moonrock Books.